Hi, this is Sabrina Marie Chase, or Sabrina Mari for short. So today I want to talk about how do you train to be a reader as opposed to how you train to be a diviner. If you've watched some of my previous videos, you might know that I make a distinction. A reader is someone who studies a particular divinatory system, gets really good at it over time, and the focus of a reader is to learn the meanings associated with the cards or the elements that they are seeking to master so they can apply them correctly when they're working with a person. A diviner is more than that. A diviner has the abilities of a reader, but also the diviner has the ability, the experience, the practice to help divine when someone's off alignment, off track, and to use their expertise to help that person get back on track. A diviner does not necessarily divine the right course of action for a person. A diviner helps a person find their own right course of action. A diviner helps the person get back into alignment with self and with spirit. But how do you train for those things? Because they are different. So training to become a reader is a little bit more obvious. In order to be a reader, whether you're a tarot reader, an oracle card reader, where you have a completely different system of divination, first you have to master and learn to manage all the elements of your particular system. So you train to be a reader by studying, by reading the meanings, and by practice. You learn to read by reading, and you do it over and over and over again for as many different kinds of people as you can. When I started, I read for myself over and over and over and over, and that's how I learned the meanings of the cards. I read the little booklets, I read a couple of books, but really, I read so frequently and so often that I began to learn the cards by living them. The first time I really recognized that every time I found myself stuck in some kind of sticky dysfunction and I got the devil card, I really learned the devil card. You learn the cards when you live the cards. And the cards that you struggle with are the cards that you have not yet lived, or you haven't connected your experiences to those cards. And as you begin reading for other people who are close to you and you get to know their lives, you can also see the connections between what you start to lay out and what they start to experience. So practice, studying and reading so that you can memorize some of the meanings. But really, it's in applying them that you start to learn. So you're doing a study that's initially sort of academic. You're learning, you're memorizing, and then as you apply and you live out those meanings, you really get the depth of what you're looking at. And in tarot in particular, each particular card is like a diamond or a jewel with many different facets. All the facets are related to each other. And so to come to understand a card, you're not really coming to learn a particular meaning or even a short list of meanings in the upright and reverse form. You're coming to understand a gem or a jewel with many, many facets, all of which are interrelated to each other. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. But the training for becoming a diviner is another big leap. It's like the difference between a caterpillar and a butterfly. There are many people who have good command of the elements of a particular system. They know the traditional meanings of the cards. They know something about applying them. They can see some patterns. But it is very different to take that knowledge and apply it to helping a human being find alignment with the highest good. So the training of a diviner requires many different elements. A diviner needs to have a very consistent and ongoing spiritual practice of his or her own. They need to be consistently practicing their own system, or a system that they've learned from other experienced mentors or teachers, or maybe a system that they were given directly from spirit. They need to have a consistent practice of grounding themselves with a listening or reflective element where they have figured out how to tune in and get messages from spirit. They need to over time know how to correct themselves when they fall out of alignment. They need to be able to recognize when they fall out of alignment, and they need to find their own healthiest practice to keep themselves aligned. So that means they need to figure out how to live their lives physically in the best possible way. So for example, I know that if I eat a lot of sugar, I'm going to get sick. I know what those kinds of symptoms are, and I know that when I'm in pain and when I am unhappy, I do a shitty job as a diviner. So I need to keep myself in alignment by lowering the amount of sugar that I eat. And when I start to inch into too much fruit, or I have a binge in ice cream, I know I need to pull back and correct myself. But for a diviner, that's true on every level. You need to do the work on a physical level. You need to do the work on an emotional level. I can't stress how important this is. The first few decades of a human's life are really dominated by figuring out how to be in relationship with other people, how to manage your own emotions, how to deal with your emotional life. And your own ability to manage your emotional life, to communicate well with yourself and others, to manage your own emotions, that's going to influence very heavily the kind of work you can do in helping other people find their alignment. So your practice needs to have a really big element of emotional learning and emotional self-management, and being able to put yourself and keep yourself in a healthy emotional state. The same is true in terms of your mental state. You need to figure out how you need to learn, how you need to keep your mind sharp, how you need to sharpen your saw, to borrow a phrase, what you need to do to keep your mind active so you're continually learning. And then finally, you need to figure out how to get into spiritual alignment and stay there, which means you need some kind of practice. Ideally, that practice should include some kind of way to connect with the divine, to speak to the divine, that's often called prayer, and to listen to the divine. And that's sometimes called meditation or reflection. So all of these pieces need to come together in your life, and you need to have some kind of consistency in this practice in order to allow you to align yourself enough to be able to sit with another human being, divine whether they're in or out of alignment and by how much, and use your tools as a reader to help them find that alignment. So the training is really very different. You could theoretically be an excellent reader and have no kind of spiritual practice. You could be an excellent reader and have a very minimal emotional management system. You could be a very skilled reader who has memorized all of the meanings and really have no sense of how to communicate with other people. But you have to have every element in place to move from reader to diviner with any consistency. And once you had a reading with a reader and you've compared it with a reading with a good diviner, you will see immediately that the differences are huge, that there is no comparison. So the training systems are really, really different. You might be asking yourself, I'm a pretty good reader, but is there any way that I could speed up so that I could start to learn what it is I need to learn to become a diviner? The answer is yes. You absolutely can do that. And a lot of the things I mentioned are kind of good common sense. The sort of physical piece where you manage your exercise, your eating, your sleep. The emotional piece where you really learn to be a good communicator. You take courses in that, you read about that, you practice good emotional self-management. Those things are pragmatic and basic. In terms of mental preparation, you want to be studying texts and with teachers and mentors. This is really important. It's really important to have good role models, to have good mentors and good teachers to make the leap from reader to diviner. So in your own spiritual tradition, whatever it is, you want to be working with teachers you trust, with mentors you trust, with people who have proven themselves to be trustworthy, kind, non-manipulative, with your own best interest at heart. And these would be people who don't tell you what to do, but through their own actions show you who you want to become and what you want to do. So this is kind of what you want to be doing. So yes, you can speed up the process. And one thing you can do that will really make a difference is that you can create your own spiritual connection practice. Maybe your tradition has something like that. There are many Christians who have a centering practice, a prayer practice. That's a great example. There are many Buddhists who practice meditation, who practice sitting, as do I. That's a fantastic practice. You want that practice to be consistent, to be regular, and to be something that over time becomes ingrained in you as a person. So if you were going to pick a couple of things to do, which I encourage, don't try to do everything at once, I would say look at each of those 4 areas: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Pick 2, probably the areas where you feel the most shaky. And then for each of those areas, look for just one practice that you can use from that area to help you gain mastery in that area. So I encourage you to think of the 3 S's, okay? Keep it short, keep it simple, and start small. I guess that's 4 S's. So that's what I would say to you that you can do, even if you're really a reader or a beginner, but you'd already like to take the steps necessary to become a diviner, to become someone who can really help heal other people by helping them align with spirit and find their own best life. So I hope you found something in this that you can apply to your own practice, that you can apply to your own life, and I thank you very much for joining me today.